So how's everyone tonight? That's good to hear. So what are you doing with your mind when you're sitting? You don't want to tell.
Minding.
Minding the storm. Yeah, minding. Selfing. All sorts of things going on. And you have like a moment of awakening. And then you come back to breath and body. And you drift again. Start getting involved in certain patterns of thought. Have another moment of awakening. Come back. Those thoughts pass as they do. As all thoughts do when you don't, invest in them. And attention is like, nourishment or fertilizer. Like whatever you give it to, that's going to grow. Okay? I mean, it's real basic. Just look at that in your life. Whatever you pay attention to is what you're going to notice more and what you're going to encourage. So our practice is noticing that at every moment you have a choice. What are you going to feed? What are you going to nourish in your mind? You're going to nourish like unhappy patterns? Well, if that's what you pay attention to a lot and you keep coming back to them when they hold up like a sign saying, look at me. Are you going to pay attention to just something that doesn't have any thought? What doesn't have any thought to it? Well, it's real simple actually. Your body processes. Breath. When the foundations of mindfulness, first one, body, which is usually understood as breath. That's the foundation. Why? Because when you look at it, it's not nourishing anything except awareness itself. Right? I mean, your breath is not going to grow into some sort of monster or angel. It just is what it is. That's the amazing thing about breath. Like, you can't actually make anything about the breath. It's hard to make a big deal about the breath. I mean, you can, and some people actually who have asthma have said to me, like, I can't deal with the breath. It starts making me, I'm like, okay. Then focus on another body process, like the sense of hearing. You can do that. But the point of these body processes, like the other foundation of like, there's body and there's feelings, sensations. You can look at your sensations. The thing is, it's hard to make a big deal about them unless you start getting into the next foundation, which is like feelings, like sort of thought packages where you're interpreting these feelings, and you notice that happening. That's when you start making a big deal about it, when you get involved with like interpretation. But in the first couple of foundations of mindfulness, you're just looking at the body processes, and it's no big deal. And when you start making a big deal about it, it's because you're involved in interpretation of thought. And you can notice that. But that's harder to do, because our thoughts sometimes seem like, well, they have a life of their own. Or they're very much like us. We think it's me. So if you want to kind of step back, if you want to let go, how do you let go? So that's always a question. How do you let go without it being pushing away? How do you let go of things that disturb you, or things that you feel you're stuck in or just going around in? Or the constant stream of thoughts that you feel like you're not just observing, but you're actually, nourishing? You're fertilizing that? Not by trying to deal with the thoughts. There's actually nothing to deal with. There's no end to that. There's no end to dealing with thoughts. Right? You know that. You have to switch the focus. And you turn to a body process. Most convenient one is your breath. Whatever you don't pay attention to goes away. Okay? Without you pushing it away. So that is the gentle approach in mindful meditation. So you're not actually pushing or rejecting or judging anything. You're just turning your attention to something that is, more basic. More basic, right? Body, life as it's lived physically. There's nothing wrong with thoughts. But during meditation, that's not what we're developing. We're developing our ability to choose our attention, our point of attention, right? You're doing that over and over again. Because most of the time, we're not conscious of choosing our focus. We're just going with whatever is like shouting at us, right? Whatever is loudest, we pay attention to, Okay, well during meditation, some things are very loud, and you can say, you know what, I hear you, later. Later. There's no judgment there. It's just saying not now. It's not saying you're bad, not saying you're good. It's just saying not now. That's all. That's a gentle approach, right? That's a sort of, realistic approach. That's getting out of the really strong habit of like and dislike, of aversion, attachment. You're not part of meditation. You shouldn't be here. Or I'm bored and this is helping pass the time. It's very common. We don't even notice that. Like if you were able to actually say I'm bored, then you wouldn't be. Because you'd actually be noticing boredom as like a phenomenon. But instead, you immediately go to the thoughts. Because you don't even acknowledge that you're bored, or restless, or anxious, or a little bit worried. So you just get involved with the thoughts, because that's like a good way to cover up that underlying state of dukkha, discomfort, dis-ease. But if you can just be with that dis-ease a little bit, kind of notice it, that underneath the constant pull of thoughts, there's dis-ease, there's discomfort. It's not physical discomfort, it's the mental discomfort of feeling like, I need something. I shouldn't just be sitting here, I should be doing something, developing something, or, hey, I don't like this. Because when I do get quiet, look what comes up. Nothing to judge there. Like, yeah, it's disturbing, or it's uncomfortable, or it's boring, or it just seems like useless, or it just seems like the same old thing again. Yep. Breath. Breathe. Breathe. If you can focus and look more closely at the actual process of being alive in this moment, the living being that you are in this moment, that it actually is quite an amazing thing to be able to sit, keep your balance, breathe, and know it. All of that. We were talking last night after the meditation that, how does it happen that I can, I'm going to try to think of this. I know it sounds crazy, but I can hold my hand, not look at it, and move my finger. How is that? How can I do that? Mm-hmm. I'm not even looking at my finger and I can move it. How does that happen? Where is the thought? I'm not even really conscious. I don't see my finger. I just have this sort of very, very subtle thought, move finger. I'm not even really saying it. I can do it. How does that happen? What is going on there? I'm not controlling the nerves and the impulses and everything in the cells. If I were conscious of all those cells, I'd probably be crazy. But I'm not, and yet it's all happening like magic. And we do it without a moment of appreciation. The fact that you're alive is involving so much, and you sit and you get bored. And you think you need more. Give me some action. Look a little closer at the true wonder of being able to be awake and breathe and know where you are and observe your mind. Wow. And not that you should be having this, wondrous epiphany, right? That's also just fake. But just that sense of waking up again to the fact that this moment is unique. Even in its dullness, it's unique, right? You have to look a little closer. This is what meditation is going to help us do. Is you look and you think you've seen it already, so you have to look again. It happens all the time. I know that when I was just away, I experienced this because I arrived and I thought, oh great, I was going to Canada and end of winter. I thought, great, I love winter. Snow, I'll go skiing. I come and they had here, there's also kind of a heat wave. Like really weird. February, heat wave. Like snow, it all melted. It was like gone. But it wasn't yet spring. It was just melt. So what does that mean? Mud, dirt, dead grass, like nothing. It's not what you call pretty. It was just like brown, wet, and muddy. Okay? You might think that's great, but but in my mind I prefer snow, for sure. Well, that's just a bummer. 1 week I just got mud. Okay, no skiing, and the hiking even is bad because it's just all mud. But I went anyway. You know what? I'm not going to say like it was all like flowers. But it challenged me to look again. That's all. That's all. I had to look again. It didn't make it into paradise or anything other than it was. But when I stopped comparing it, then it was what it was. And it was its own experience. If I compared it to snow or spring, yeah, it kind of sucked. But if I didn't do that, then what did I find? That Bashu haiku, like Mount Fuji obscured, a misty day, Mount Fuji is completely obscured. How interesting, right? So like, go for a nice hike and it's just muddy and dirty. Interesting. It doesn't mean good or bad. It just means it is what it is. And if you look at it, that's interesting. Boredom is interesting. Restlessness is interesting. Even anger and irritation, those are interesting. How's that happening? It's like your finger moving. I'm not really totally aware of controlling it, but I am doing it. So it's like, where did this anger come from? Where did this irritation come from? Where did the impatience come from? Where did this pattern come from? You don't need to go, I don't need to, know how my finger is working. But I can just be aware that it's happening. It's, part of me right now. And, that's interesting, because I'm going to observe that. Right? So whatever state you experience, really, because you look at it, it doesn't make it nice or good. It doesn't necessarily make it bad. Right? It makes it your unique reality right now. Your life. This is your life. This moment. All right? This is what you have. Okay? If you wish for another one, it probably won't come. Right? Because when you do get another one, you'll be wishing for another one. How do you break that cycle of always wanting something else? By paying attention to what you have. It's so simple. And yet so elusive. Slips away from our grasp. Okay? So there was this there's this one story, this Zen story that I like. It's this Master Yuan, and he was sweeping. He was sweeping, and a student came to him and said, "You're really busy, aren't you?" Right? Meaning, and he was applying that, well, what are you doing all the sweeping for when actually you should be sitting in meditation? Yeah. And Master Yuan said, I'm not busy. I'm not busy. Right? Like, I'm not busy. And so the student said, well, that seems like there are two moons, meaning there's like, the busy person and the not busy person. The person who is like aware and the person who's not aware. Is that the reality? And he just lifted up his broom and said, is the broom busy? Like, who's busy here? Who's irritated? Who's anxious? Who is, whatever you are, is that you? Is that really you? Or can you just, there's sweeping going on, there's, impatience going on, there is excitement going on, there is restlessness going on. I'm not restless. I'm not restless. I'm not angry. I'm experiencing anger. Okay? I'm not sad. There is sadness. There's deep sadness. Right? Who's moving the finger? Right? Do you need to attach to it as your sense of self, or can you observe it? Can you appreciate it? I say, this is it. Like, this is it. This is not something to get over. Your difficult experience is not something you have to get over in order to finally get to something better. That's what I'm trying to say. Your difficulty is your enlightened experience. That's it. It's your destination. And the next thing you arrive at is your destination. But it's not a means to some other end. Your meditation practice will bring you to this present moment as your final destination. Right? And the final destination keeps changing as long as you're alive. But it's not a means to something else. There's this line in Dogen where he said, firewood does not become ash. There is firewood, and then there's ash. And there's no connection between the two of them. But wait a second, I lit the fire and the wood, and it burned, and then it turned into ash. Yeah, I guess in terms of past, present, future, that happened. Right? And we know we're not going to deny that and act like I'm some sort of, idiot savant just in this present, Yeah, I am just in the present, and I can understand the connection of past, present, and future as my, my memory, right? But as my actual experience, there is firewood and there is ash. And it's helpful in order to let go of some of our attachments and suffering we get from holding on to past mistakes, of just seeing the ash or just seeing the firewood. Right? And you can do that because that actually is the truth. The ultimate truth is when there's ash, there's just ash. And the fact that it was firewood is actually your memory. Okay, it's your memory. Yeah.
Regarding overcoming challenges or difficulties, or not overcoming and see it as an enlightened experience. So I will take like a very simple example that I experienced many times. For example, if I have someone criticize me, and so I see, for example, anger rising. So it's true that I do try to see it, okay, it's anger rising, it's not me, it's not mine. But I think after I acknowledge this, I think it's important to overcome this anger and to understand that the reason I had this anger is because like a deeper attachment that someone criticized me and I took offense of it, and maybe I like to rely on a good criticism or something like that. So there is cause of the reason, which is not enlightened one. It's from delusion or maybe deep habit. It's okay. I'm not לא יהיה פה פולני ויכעס על עצמי. כן, כן, it's not an enlightened mind that caused this anger to arise. And so I think it's very important to accept the anger. That's what I am right now, but maybe I need to be careful next time not to rely on good critics or not to take offense on bad critics. So there is action to do, I think. It's not only to see anger as anger, and it's not me, it's not mine, like what I'm learning from that experience. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, there's the contemplation that you can do, like where's the anger coming from? But sometimes the contemplation does not necessarily help you release it. So the question is, how do we release it? And this is where I go back to, what are you going to pay attention to? I see the anger, but I'm not going to dwell on it and say, yeah, this is my enlightenment, so, you know, the more the better. You know, no, like, bring it on. No, it's more like, I see the suffering here, and I turn back, instead of to the emotion, I turn to the breath. I turn, you know, I pause. First of all, I acknowledge, I breathe, I acknowledge, I stop, I breathe, I proceed, right? So the acknowledging, stopping, and breathing are the process of turning your attention to something else, rather than feeding or nourishing that emotion. Because sometimes we can say, yeah, you know, this is not me, but it's exciting. Anyways, it's giving me a lot of energy, you know, and we have an addiction to that energy. Especially when we're bored, anger is exciting. We're not going to say that. We're not going to admit that. But it gives that feeling of life energy that we feel we're missing a lot, which is just a huge mistake, because it's not a helpful, it's a harmful energy. Not all energy is equal. It all exists. But basically, where I turn my attention away from is harm-causing factors. So I turn it back to breath, where I'm accepting and acknowledging the anger as my moment. I'm not identifying with it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to say, yeah, and so, you know, you're enlightened, because, meaning you're good or you're fine, it's fine for you to stay here. No, you're harmful, right? You're my moment. You're my moment. Okay? But I'm going to turn my attention from just like these distracting thoughts or obsessive thoughts. It's the same sort of thing. I acknowledge that, hey, you know, it's a pattern, and it doesn't mean I'm going to indulge it. I'm going to encourage it. Rather, I notice it. Acknowledging does not mean like encouraging. Acknowledging means accepting as, perhaps this is now what I have to sort of deal with. Yeah? And dealing with doesn't mean like, hey, let me, you know, stay. It just means, actually, I'm going to let go of you. Dealing with means letting go of, in most cases. And letting go does not mean pushing away. It means turning attention to something else. Now, understanding where it comes from and the cause and effect is interesting, you know, intellectually. But the challenge is taking it from the mental understanding and turning it to my experiential release, my experiential freedom, right? That's the real challenge, right? And that's where the power of mindfulness is powerful. Meaning, we turn our attention, and whatever we focus on is what we nourish, you know? So you turn it away from getting involved in the story of the anger, like she criticized me, whatever, or it's hurt my ego, you know, and where'd that come from, whatever. You know, that's kind of a longer process for letting go of anger. But the more immediate kind of process or practice is simply, where do I put my attention? You know? So put it, instead of the emotion, to the breath, the physiological sensation. How do you experience irritation, anger, boredom as a breath, as a state, as a body state, as a mindfulness of body, the first foundation? How do I experience difficult emotions as a foundation, first foundation of mindfulness of the body? You know, that's where we kind of release it.
But looking forward, I think it's also important like to get ready for the next time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's true. Mindfulness is a good reaction, but also like not to encourage anger or greed or things to arise in the future. It's also
yeah. Look, we contemplate the teachings for sure.
Yeah.
And the teachings of karma and cause and effect of our own, attachments. Definitely. It all works together. But in our practice, we want to kind of train to quickly recognize harmful states of mind, acknowledge them, and not feed them. Okay, and not feed them. In between those experiences, you can contemplate it. But when you're actually having the experience, it's not the time to start contemplating the cause and effect. It's time to turn your attention to a more wholesome place. Right? That wholesome place is, body breath, and acceptance. I was reading over Pema Chodron again, and she talked about this, that the mind has three natural qualities to it. And these are very helpful qualities that give us faith when you're feeling like my mind is not so wholesome. The first quality of mind was the empathetic mind, the mind that has compassion, that we have natural fellow feeling. Natural fellow feeling. And actually, when you feel criticized, it's like the backside of compassion, because you're affected by somebody else. You're affected. When we feel anger, it's sort of the shadow of compassion. But it's also reinforcing the fact that we are deeply connected to all others. The other natural characteristic of mind is that you have a sort of a natural intelligence, intuitive intelligence, or wisdom. Yeah, that when you are, doing the right thing, and when you're not. You don't know it so much from an intellectual place, but you know it from your conscience or your sense of that natural clarity. You have a natural clarity that you can trust more in your life. And we tend to confuse it with having right and wrong thoughts. But it's something other than thought. It's that sense of knowing, that sense of trusting that, I'm not sure what the right thing is to do, but I kind of have a deep trust in myself that I will. I will know. Right? So that trust in the nature of your own mind as having a natural sentient wisdom. That's the nature of clarity. So you have natural compassion, fellow feeling. We sit in a sangha because it's helpful, right? That's reinforcing that fellowship. And we naturally feel pain for others' pain. We naturally care. We naturally feel warmth. Right? There's the warm heart. That's the nature of the mind. There is the natural clarity, where you can know what you're thinking, you can know what you're doing, you can know whether it actually is helpful or far harmful. You kind of have that natural clarity. And the third quality of mind is interest. Right? Is interest and curiosity, which sometimes we dull. Okay, but when we allow ourselves to be more, trusting in our mind, the world's an interesting place. The mind's an interesting thing. And we call it beginner's mind in Zen, but it's that sense of curiosity, which is natural state of mind. A sense of looking and looking again. The not knowing mind. So those three qualities of mind, the compassionate, warm heart, okay, the natural clarity and wisdom, that is not just what you've learned, okay, but it's more a deep trust in what you naturally know. And the doubt, the questioning, the curiosity, the interest, we bring those into our practice again and again. That is the background to our mindfulness. Right? Mindfulness is not just like existing in a vacuum. It's resting on a ground, and that ground is the nature of your mind, and the nature of your mind that is clear, that is wise. You know, the nature of your mind that cares. You want to end suffering, you want others not to suffer, right? And the nature of the mind that is interested. You start to look and you start to say, you start to see. You know, what looked like a muddy ground is actually pretty interesting if you look. So that's kind of the ground that we sit on. And when you allow that, and you trust that, and you open to that, your meditation is fruitful, even in its dry places. Okay? Yeah, as that saying goes, you know, if your mind's not disturbed by, you know, vain or useless thoughts, every season is a good one for you. Okay? So, and that's an expression of that natural interest. Like, what makes your life not interesting? Comparing thoughts. That makes your life not interesting. When you compare your experience to a better future or a better past, that makes your life not interesting, doesn't it? You know, it was better last time, or it'll be better later on. Okay? Those are what is called useless thoughts. Okay? So, and that trust I want to talk about. There's another example. But first I'll give you an example of the comparing mind that I also had when I was away. I was going for a walk in the mud, and I got tired, and I thought, wow, I'm really tired. I was jet lagged, but I just thought, oh, I'm going to lie down. So I found some grass, brown grass. And I lay down, and it was in the woods, and I was listening to the wind in the trees, and it was so nice. It's nice wind in the trees, wind in the trees, wind in the trees. You know, so nice. And I heard some other wind, and it was kind of interesting too. Then I listened a little more carefully, and the other wind, there was like a highway 200 meters away, and it was like cars going by. And then after I recognized that, I thought, oh, I wish the cars would go away and I could just listen to the wind. And I couldn't get rid of the thought of the cars, right? But a few minutes before, it was just different way. Like they were both nice sounds, right? Nice sounds. Okay? So these are how the skandhas work. Okay, like the 5 skandhas that we kind of create a sense of self, and then that sense of self is usually unhappy. Is you know, there's like form, like there was air, and there was body, and there was earth. Me, body, air around me, trees, like form, wood. Those things exist. It's undeniable. Okay, I was lying on it, and then there's like feelings where, you know, I got this. I felt the air. I could, you know, there was sound as well. There was sensations. Let's say there was sensations, sense of hearing. Okay, and then I thought, so I was like, oh, I'm recognizing wind. There's wind. So it was just a sense of hearing, like, and then I came to the thought, oh yeah, this is wind. This is wind. This is wind. And then this is cars, right? And the 4th one is a level of karma, where I take that car and wind, and instead of it just being, okay, car, wind, car, wind, car, wind, you know, it's like, then I discriminate. Wind good, car bad. Okay? It all started from that first, like there's form, and then there's sensations, okay? Then perceptions, you know, like these definitions, and then discrimination, where I create karma. What is a karma? Karma is like my volition. Volition meaning what I want and what I don't want. I wanted the wind, I didn't want the cars. Right? And it all came from my picking and choosing based on, my preferences. It had nothing to do with that reality. Because before I discriminated, the sounds were equally okay. They were fine. Okay? And then I started to, create a whole story around them. And then my sense of self, the last skanda, like this consciousness was, I guess it's time to move. I better get up. Like I was not so satisfied anymore, not so happy anymore. Wasn't as good. My sense of self was like it was happy and then less happy. Okay? And it all came from that fourth skanda, which was where I started to discriminate between what I liked and what I didn't like. The world was as it was. It was as it was. Can we sit with things as they are? Pay attention to our experience before we get involved in the preferences and the story. And if we do get involved with the preferences in the story, we can notice that and turn our mind again and again to a simple process. A simple physical process. Right? Yes, we can. And that's what we do in our practice again and again. If we notice that happening, we notice it. Okay, that's a deep pattern. Okay, that's how I make myself. And I can notice it happening. And I turn back. Okay? I turn back because I can. Because my mind is clear, I can see it. Because I care. That's the compassionate aspect. I don't want to suffer, and I see how my preferences usually end up making me wanting something else and dissatisfied. Right? And I'm interested. I'm like, what is it to be alive? Is this really it? Is this really it? Let me look again. Okay? That last level of mind is you look and you look again. And you look again. Our beliefs of who we are and what we are, okay, create sometimes joy and sometimes suffering. And the wise mind can know the difference. When are your beliefs and your ideas of yourself, leading to joy? And when are they leading to, disharmony? Okay, let's just put it that way, disharmony. There's this one famous story of Suzuki Roshi I really love, when he was at the San Francisco Zen Center, and he went out to lunch with one of his senior students. And the student was really, he was a vegan, okay? Very strong vegan. I don't mean strong physically, mentally strong vegan. And they went to a diner, and the vegan, his student, ordered a nice salad, and Suzuki Roshi ordered a big hamburger. And the food came, and Roshi switched the plates. Right? Just switch the plates. That's the end of the story. No one says what happened after. No one knows. You know?
He ate.
He ate it? He ate the hamburger?
That's what Dan just told me the story yesterday.
That he ate it? Oh, really? Because I heard it from Norman Fisher, and he said they don't know what happened next.
Oh, really? So maybe.
Maybe he ate it. He ate it. Well, because back then you had to do what your teacher told you. Now nobody does. But yeah, that wouldn't happen in Israel, would it? Yeah, but the point was, and I actually know of another story where there's a Daido Roshi, someone I studied with. There was a student of his who was a smoker, okay, and so he sat him in a room across from a table, and he took out a few packages. The teacher took out a few packages of cigarettes, put them on the table, took one for himself and one for a student, smoked it, They finished it, took another one, and they finished like 3 packages until they were both so sick. No one smoked again. So the fact is, we have a lot of ideas, okay? And trust your natural wisdom to know whether your ideas of who you are, what you are, is helpful or harmful. Whether is it, and what do I mean by helpful? Is it creating greater unity, or is your idea just creating a wall and an obstacle? Is it divisive and creating separation between you and others, or is it inclusive? Now that natural wisdom is not Buddhist, it's not Jewish, it's human, it's sentient. I was when I was visiting my elderly mother, and she was at this old age home, and I was walking down the hall, and the workers are really interesting people, like the people who clean the rooms, because they're having like intimate time with the old people every day, and this cleaner was like this immigrant from some Eastern European country. She said to me, I was talking to her, and she said to me, my mother, not my mother, her mother was old, and she said that her mother told her, I guess, people talk about parents when they're in old age home. Her mother told her that when you get old, you get heavy. That's what she said. When you get old, you get heavy. Right? And then she said to me, so I want to stay light. I was like, wow. Yeah, me too. Me too. And then, and what her mother meant was that you're heavy not for yourself, because you're like, old people, they either get like big or really small. But when she meant heavy, she meant like a burden to those around you, that most people see you as somebody that you just, like you need to deal with. Okay? Like a set of problems. And that's heavy. That the people that you loved see you now as a problem. A loving problem, but still a problem. And so she said, yeah, it's really, you gotta stay light. And then there's another worker who was like passing by. It's like African Canadian, I guess you say. We don't really say African Canadians. I don't know what we say, but that's what she was. And she said to me, that she sees she sees a lot of the people, and some people have visitors and some people don't have visitors. And the people who have visitors, they visited others. That's what she said to me. Like, wow, that's karma. That's karma. First lesson, you gotta let go. Otherwise, when you get old, you're gonna be heavy. Okay? So the second one was, the way you act to others is the way they're gonna act to you. That's karma. And then the first woman said to me, she sees people, the average time in this place was like 2 to 3 years, and then then the room is free. Okay, and they get someone else. She said, so many people die that you gotta remember, the only thing that matters is your children. That's what she said. Like everything else is just small. Everything else is small, right? And for her it was children, but really it was just like everything is small stuff. If you know that you're going to die. So that's what she was saying. Like everyone's going to die, meaning just about anything you can worry about is not worth worrying about. Right? These two women were revealing to me what Pema Chodron said was the natural intelligence of a human sentient being. Right? We all have that wisdom that's accessible. You know, it's accessible, and it's natural, and it's you. And if we sit and we can just trust the openness, okay, and that clarity, and accept, you know, accept everything as it is, and let it pass. Okay, travel light, be kind to others, and know you're going to die. That will bring you back again and again. And you'll be exactly where you need to be.